people are fed by stories and images. I think this is really true. I think stories are soul food, and I think one of the reasons I've said this in other podcasts, but the city of man is sick because the soul is sick. This is the Republic, right? Socrates deals with this. We see a certain type of sickness in the city, but we also see virtue that can arrive. And so again, we're in this tension of seeming contradictions, and we're fed by stories and images. I think one of the things that has made our society sick is that we have disregarded stories as though they're just for children, and we've grown too serious. G.K. Chesterton talks about this. He said part of the childlike nature of God is seen in God's ability to endure the monotonous. He makes every daisy the same, not because, I forget exactly, but because he never tires of making daisies. And we have grown old, and our Creator is younger than we are. And we have grown old, and our Creator is younger still, or something like that. And so when we abandon stories, we abandon the nutrients that our soul needs. And I think we do see that in society. I think we see people are very susceptible to deception. And this is one of the things I want to do, either another video or a live stream, will be on the nature of like Joe Rogan's influence in this election cycle, and the reaction of people who seem completely dislocated from reality. The cognitive dissonance that has been exposed is sort of sad. And is it because we've lost a sense of story? I said this, that when we lose a shared narrative, we open ourselves up to deception, something like that. The narrative needs to be shared. The story needs to be shared. It needs to bring community together. And when you lose that, you open yourself up in deception. I think this is Genesis 3. I think that's what's happening in the garden. I think we see that. We see that Eve was vulnerable to the deception of the serpent because she didn't have the story correct. Now, I don't know why she didn't have the story correct. My assumption is that Adam did not steward the story correctly. And I've pointed this out before, but you can see it in Genesis. I mean, I'm already right there. Look at me. Look at me. You see it right here. She says we can't touch the tree. That's not really true. That's not what God told Adam. God told Adam, don't eat of the fruit. Eve tells the serpent, we can't touch the tree. And so she's left open to deception. She doesn't have the right story that would preserve her soul. And so Martin pointed out that Jesus is a storyteller. He's not philosophizing our guts out of us. He's not philosophizing us out of our guts. I just like that. I like that. Yeah. I don't know. Guts. That's just such a, I don't know. It's very descriptive, right? Jesus tells stories. And one of the things, and I want to go back and look at this, but he was talking about the types of stories that we see in the Bible and how they're kind of no frills. You don't really get an internal monologue from the character, the person that maybe is the focal point of the story. You just get very raw stories. And Martin even said it was difficult for him to really get into the Bible as a storyteller, because there's just not that. It's a different art form, I guess you could say. And yet it still has this same effect of like Russian nesting dolls opening up and opening up and opening up. And you start to see like the subtle irony of this person, Jesus, and how he tells the blind man to come here, He doesn't go to the blind man. He tells the blind man to come find him, right? He writes in the sand, and we're not told what he's writing. He tells the woman at the well, that there's a different water that she's really looking for. So there's all this irony. Okay, and then we're beginning with Ireland, which I thought is really interesting. Gosh, he said this was so good. We're beginning with the Irish stories, and he said we're going to look through stories of the condition of Ireland just before the arrival of Christianity. Christianity did not arrive on the tip of the spear, but on the tip of the tongue. It arrived by conversation. The Druids understood that this was a more full picture as they would begin to talk about, as the monks begin to share their faith, share about Jesus, I guess. And those who were already native to the island understood that this was not, because it was, and Martin didn't quite say this, but I'm sort of processing it now, because it was a conversation, it was understood as being a more full picture of what they were already trying to understand, though pagan though it was, that it was leading them to this master storyteller, this great druid, this whatever, but if it was done like maybe a modern Christian apologist of like, no, you guys have this, and this wrong, and this, and this are right, and it was done more as an argument and not a conversation, I wonder what the reception would have been on Ireland to these first Christian missionaries. But because it arrived on the tip of this, it did not arrive on the tip of the spear, but on the tip of the tongue, it arrived by conversation. Are we not seeing something like this today? That there's a great conversation going on. And you have people like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and Russel Brand. Now, Russel Brand has become baptized as a Christian. I don't think that's an accident. Jordan Peterson is, very close. Joe Rogan is just like, famously, you can see the change in his worldview over the past couple of years, even the years that I've been following his podcast on this podcast. There's a great conversation going on, and I do think that Christianity unfortunately smuggled a lot of modernity into its approach. Now, I say that I think we benefit a lot from modernity, and yet I wonder if something we lost, and when I say we, I mean in the Christian church, we lost that sense of storytelling and mystery that comes with it, and we reduced the gospel, the great story of the gospel, down to 3 bullet points and a prayer. We took what is naturally a 3-dimensional object, like a great ruby or diamond, and we reduced it down to a 2-dimensional graph of what the diamond actually is. But stories have a way of being 3-dimensional and maintaining that in our imagination. We've lost that, I think. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but I wonder if there's something here to the way the gospel arrived in Ireland that we can learn from in our modern world today. Let me know your thoughts on that.